Welcome back to Media Hotline, a podcast about brands, media, and the business of editorial. My name is Danica Lo, and for the last 20 years, I've been a journalist, writer, editor, and digital director at some of the biggest media companies in the United States. Now, I run a consulting business where I help brands and corporations with their digital and media strategies. This episode of Media Hotline is all about why brands need great PR agencies. I come from the editorial side of the business, and while traditionally there's been some friction between the editorial and PR side of the industries, the truth is, and any journalist or editor who has ever been directly contacted by a celebrity, an agent, or a company executive who does not sit in the comms department will attest to the fact that many, if not the vast majority of stories, especially in the lifestyle and entertainment media spaces, would never have been written without the help and the hard work of a great publicist. And while finding a great PR agency that aligns with your brand and business goals is not that simple or straightforward, signing with the wrong one could make or break your company. Maybe that's melodramatic, but it could cause some serious damage. Here's an example. Last year, I was working on a feature story for a fast company where I was writing about all of these new women's wellness businesses that were opening giant, beautiful storefronts all along Fifth Avenue. I wanted to peg the story on the grand opening of a new concept women's aesthetics services company that had just opened on a major corner. Their branded scaffolding had been up for months on Fifth Avenue. I had done some pre research, and they finally opened their doors on April 1st of last year. I did some Googling and I found out that their pre launch PR agency was a really well known, highly reputable agency here in New York City. I knew some people who worked there, so I reached out and they told me that somewhere in between pre launch and the actual grand opening, this business had decided to switch their agency to a remote agency in Boston. This didn't seem that weird at the time because I had noticed over the pandemic that a lot of companies had moved their PR agency dollars away from traditional markets like New York, LA, Chicago, Miami to remote markets because everyone was working remote. So I noticed we were working more with agencies in Oklahoma City, in St. Louis, in Nashville. So this didn't seem that weird to me. I sent a really detailed request to the publicist in Boston asking to do a Zoom or an in person interview with the founder or CEO or head of medical services at this company that had just opened its first huge storefront on Fifth Avenue in New York City. By this time, the store had been open for a couple of weeks. We exchanged about 6 emails going back and forth, and it took me a while to figure out what she was asking for. But the publicist told me that she would not set up an interview with the founder or CEO or anyone of the company for my story unless I promised to write an exclusive about the store opening in New York. And this was very confusing to me because the store had already been open in New York for 2.5 weeks at this point. And it had massive branding on Fifth Avenue. Like, this is not a secret. I didn't have a scoop. We went back and forth a little bit like this until I realized that the disconnect was that because this company had decided to hire an agency hundreds of miles away for its grand opening of a brick and mortar services location in New York City, their publicist in Boston did not know that the store had been open for 3 weeks already. In hindsight, and this is my opinion, and it's very reductionist, but I think that maybe if you are launching a brick and mortar business in a huge metropolitan hub like New York, where local press and also national press is located, it's probably a better option to hire a local PR agency, especially if there is a potential for disruption and miscommunication between the company and a remote agency. I do think from a media perspective, it was a huge misstep on the part of this startup because I did keep an eye out for launch stories in the first few months they were open, and they received hardly any coverage at all. There are so many benefits to working with a great PR agency, whether you're a massive multinational public brand or a small startup. One of the key benefits is being able to work with an agency and all of the resources the agency can tap into as an extension of yourself or a small in house department. Another thing to remember is that external agencies have a really broad purview. They likely work with other clients, lots of different kinds of media, and they really understand what's going on in the business, sometimes within a sector or sometimes across the board in pop culture. Because of this perspective, a lot of agencies are able to bring proven strategies and best practices from other businesses or sectors or industries to the table. Then there's just sheer power in numbers, bringing additional talent and specialty consultants to the table when you don't have those in house. This can help you create a more well rounded, experienced team for particular projects and without having to staff up yourself. Working with a great PR agency can also help your business and your brand in the long run in terms of relationship building and network expansion. I think there are six main things to consider when looking for an agency that is the right fit for your brand and business. The first thing to consider is your business and brand goals and how your marketing and communication strategy ladder up to that. Maybe you're looking for some long term help to grow your brand visibility in the market, or maybe you're looking for some high profile media placements to put in an investor deck or as part of your roadmap to an exit strategy. Some companies are looking for short term project help for change management or to amplify a launch, and other companies may be looking more for crisis PR or reactionary PR. The second thing to think about is what resources you have to dedicate towards the retainer as well as activation. So, in addition to retainer for consulting fees, production, talent and influencer partnerships, paid media, branded content, content production, including multimedia and campaign execution, all of that is additional. So, think about your resources and what you want to achieve. The third thing to consider is an agency's capabilities and its existing portfolio of clients. Competitors, whether direct or indirect, in an agency's existing portfolio can work both for you and against you. Do you want an advisory agency or an executions agency? What kind of internal resources do you have to execute strategies? From a consultant's point of view, the number one challenge I face when engaging with clients is lack of execution. Once a strategy is created, someone still has to do the work. And hiring an agency without budgeting for execution and production, it's not a magic wand. The fourth thing to consider is that for your brand or business, what's more important, quantity or quality? There's a place and a time for both. There are plenty of agencies out there that will churn for you 24 hours a day. They will sit at their desk and write endless quotes and responses to requests on Haro. That's HARO. It's help a reporter out. And honestly, if you hired a really good executive assistant, they could do that for you in house. Media placements and getting quoted all over the place like that is great for getting your name out there. But what does it really achieve? What is the impact? For every brand and every business, at some inflection points, it'll be more important to create high impact strategies for maximum ROI. So this is quantity versus quality. If you work with an external agency partner that is more concerned with optics of returning you 100 media hits a month that have very little impact, well, they're great at optics, but what does that really offer you in the long run? In fact, working with agencies like that can wind up costing you a lot of money for a very long time with very little in return. The fifth thing to consider is gaps in your existing operation. If your company runs a very top heavy marketing team, consider looking for agencies that offer more hands on execution and services. For example, agencies that staff a lot of content creators and writers to craft executive responses and press releases, or agencies that handle a lot of admin so they can do a lot of appointment booking, or agencies that do event production and campaign management. The sixth thing is to consider how hands on you want to be managing an agency day to day. In my experience, just the same way there are different kinds of agencies, there are different kinds of clients. There are some clients that like to line edit and talk about the words used in every single strategy doc or pitch that's sent out. There are other clients that require way more in terms of compliance, especially in the financial sector. And there are other clients that prefer to only have very high level oversight. The key here is not to blindly choose one or the other, but to find an agency that aligns very well with your preferred way of working. For me, as a journalist and editor throughout my career, I have always preferred to work with publicists and agencies that foster long-term relationships. Even when a publicist moves from one agency to another, we still keep in touch. And not just relationships, but authentic relationships. I like it when I'm talking to a publicist about a story, and I can tell that they're talking to me because they care about the story, they care about their client, and they're talking to me as a human, as a person, and not just as a transaction. I also prefer working with marketing and comms professionals who have a deep understanding of storytelling and narrative and don't expect something to be covered in the media just because it's new and it's there. Along the same lines, there are very few agencies and brands that can achieve a high placement rate with spam messages or mass blast press releases. I really like working with PR people who understand how we can work together to offer value to the audience. For me, it's really important that the publicist is both knowledgeable and at least seems passionate about the client's business and industry that they're pitching. And I always appreciate when a publicist or an agency's culture remembers that journalists and editors are investing their own time and company resources into telling brand and client stories. So if anyone ever approaches me to ask which my favorite PR agencies are, I always advise businesses to look for agencies that are staffed with marketing and comms professionals who have authentic relationships with journalists, editors, and publishers. That is priceless. And those relationships are what businesses and brands are paying for. Finally, in terms of PR agency red flags to look out for, I really only have two. And that's because I think red flags will look different for every single brand. On a high level, the first red flag is agencies that only look out for their own interests. I like to think of the brand agency relationship as a collaboration or partnership, but I think the best dynamic is when an agency has the client's best interests at heart in everything they do. And the second red flag to look out for in PR agencies is something that might be a little bit controversial because I think secretly there are some brands and businesses who would prefer things to work this way. But I really believe that if you have an agency that just rolls over and says yes all the time without bringing any new strategies or innovations or external best practices to the table, that is a client is always right model. And sure, sometimes it's fine. And some clients do want that. They just want support staff to execute on a checklist. But I really believe that if you have a great PR agency and great external consultants, they should be bringing new ideas to the table. A great agency will bring new ideas, new strategies, and they will push the client. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable can sometimes be the only way to innovate and to achieve maximum return on your investment. That's it for this episode of Media Hotline. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. If you would like to submit a question or a case study for consideration for a future episode of Media Hotline, please visit my website at danicalo.com. You can click on Media Hotline where there is a contact form you can use to send me a message. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.